Hey, I'm very excited to be sitting here talking to you today. In front of me is the Teenage Engineering POM400, or the Pocket Operator Modular 400. I've wanted one of these since the day they were announced, and thanks to the Kickstarter backers that I'll be thanking at the end of this video officially, I finally have one in my hand. So we're going to start this whole process by unboxing this, figuring out what we have, and putting it all together. I've shown a lot of self-control over the last few days not opening this up, so I'm not going to waste any more time. Let's get to it. Now there's a tear strip on the front of the box, but I can actually just kind of pop the adhesive apart here and save the box because I am mental. All right, we have some cables, some bits and bobs. I'm just going to throw the packaging aside. Those cables are pretty. Oh, the individual module boxes. A sine oscillator, an envelope, a sawtooth oscillator, another envelope, square oscillator, the filter. Oh, geez, let's just pour this whole thing out. Oh, man, a mixer, a VCA, another VCA, because you can never have too many VCAs, and that's just a fact. LFO, random generator, noise generator. Oh, I'm getting excited already. This is the chassis with a color peep door. Let's peep that color. Oh, we'll peep it later. Come on, I want to peep the color now. Anyway, there's a color peep door there. An absolutely beautiful manual. Ooh, nice, with some starter patches. We will absolutely be going through those. Oh. They mentioned the POM170 here. We don't have one of those. Oh, this is very interesting. It gives you a real breakdown. The instructions look very Lego, very IKEA. Oh, this is the instruction manual for the whole series, looks like. Oh yeah, for sure. Because it starts off with the 16, but we're on the 400. All right, let's find out what else is in this box. There's more wrapping down in here. Oop. All right. Beautiful box, by the way. Set that aside. Some packing material. Power board. Power supply module. The speaker. And the sequencer. Let's get into that construction manual. Now, it is mentioned on the box and in the manual that there is a driver included, a physical, like a screwdriver. But I am not seeing that in any of this packaging anywhere. I'm just gonna go check on the parts that I tossed over on the floor here to see if they are in there. Not a darn thing. All right, maybe we'll find it. Maybe it's packaged in with this chassis. If not, we are going to go grab something from the other room. satisfying. Aha. And there we have it. There's the driver and all of the screws. They're packaged with the chassis. Oh, and there it is. My first thought right out of the gate is this is smaller than I was expecting it to be somehow. But that's great. Small is good. Small gear is good. Look at that. That is gorgeous. I love everything about that. All right, so let's move all these modules out of our way for now. We don't need to worry about these cables at all, though let's just take a quick look at them so that we can talk about them. They're not bad cables at all. The first thing that I'm noticing is they are all TRS cables instead of your standard TS cables, meaning you have a tip, ring, and sleeve connection, commonly used for like a stereo output, headphones, communication between pocket operators. Normally your modular patch cable is just going to be TS or tipped sleeve. So that's an interesting development. TRS cables are generally much more costly. So bonus. Oh, we got all kinds of little nobules, of course. You know, they have that Lego Technics integration. I haven't ever seen anybody really do much with it though. So have you used your Lego with teenage engineering stuff? Let me know in the comments. All right, all that stuff is out of the way. Let's get into the manual. Oh, I don't want to break the binding on this, but I think it's going to happen. All right, so first, let's make sure we have our pieces. All the nobules are going to be in here. Here's the driver. Don't think I have 120 screws. They must come, okay, they're in the individual module boxes. Got it. All right. So let's start bending this bad boy together. Golly, that is pretty. You know, people say what you will about teenage engineering. I'm not going to buy that $1,400 table, but they sure do know design. Okay. So they point out on the first step here that you want it pointy side up. These two connectors at the bottom here, where they are countersunk for the screws, you want those pointing up towards you so that you can feel them. Same with these corners, not the other way where they are indented. That's all they're telling you in the first step. All right, oh, that feels good. That feels really good to bend that together. It bends freely and easily. Just be sure not to overbend. Step 2 says bend those two up. Step 3 and step 4 are to bend these through. That little hole right there. And then flip it over. And flip those down. Nice. Flip it back over for step 5. Get that up at a 90-degree angle. And then, ooh, they kind of hit you with a 1-2 punch here. You want to fold this over fold these tabs up like that. Fold these this way. And then fold this bottom piece down so that those tabs slide right in there like that. And then for the next step, I'm going to take these tabs and flip them down. It looks like I missed one thing. Yeah, part 7 of this step, flip that tab inward as well. All right, there we have it. Check. Set that over there. Next piece, please. Nice little debossed TE logo. Again, we want to pay attention to the orientation. Pointy up. And just bend that up at a 90-degree angle. And that's it. I think that's all they need you to do with this piece. Simple enough. Set that over here with the rest of it. And the next piece. This big backing piece. Again, you want to make sure we're paying attention to positioning and orientation here. And in this case, you want the pointy side down. The pointy side of the connectors down. And fold all these edges up to a 90-degree angle. With the exception of these top 2 pieces, we're going to get to those in a moment. Those top 2 pieces go the other way, and there's actually a handy guide on the page to help you get the angle just right. Because it can be a little extreme. Or seem a little extreme. All right, we have another piece sorted. Something tells me we'll move into assembly. All right, time to bust out this little screwdriver. Now, sorry, hex driver. I know a lot of people are just going to use their own hex screwdriver. That's what I would normally do in this situation, but I'm trying to go for the kit as it is, so we're going to use the included hex driver. But definitely, if you have your own hex driver, it would make your life a lot easier. All right, so we need this little piece here. Like so. And this piece here. You can see that the indentations lock into each other. We're just going to put 2 screws in from the back side. Oh, and they are tiny little fellas. Oh, apologies. It is not a hex wrench. It is a star key driver. So you're going to want a star key driver, one of the little tiny ones. My recommendation for anyone who's doing anything DIY is get a good set of universal tips for a tiny screwdriver. You're going to want them all. All right, update. I'm going to go into the other room and I'm going to get a screwdriver for this because this is not the right tool for the job. So, be right back. And we're back. I'll probably post a link to this. This is my go-to driver set right now. I've yet to find anything that I couldn't find in here tip-wise. So let's take a look. So many star key options. Not a T8. All right, so it's a T7 star key bit. That's what you're going to want if you're just buying a single at home. But again, I recommend if you're going to be building stuff, if you're going to be voiding warranties, just get yourself a good set. They're not that expensive by comparison. Especially once you have to buy a second bit of some kind. The screws take a little while to catch. They're machine screws, so they're not particularly pointy. So make sure you hold it tight from the other side when you're screwing. Oh, that's so much better than using the included tool. It says do not over tighten screws. So I don't know if there's a specific level of torque you want. I'm not going to strip them out or anything. I think that's really what they want you to avoid. All right. So this is where it gets a little bit different. Well, actually, no, this is good. Apologies. We're going to keep it by the book for now. And for that, we're going to take this backing plate, this inner backing plate, and place it like so, where those slots pop right through. And we're going to put the 4 corner screws in now. Again, being careful not to over tighten. And really make sure you're holding that together because those screws take a little bit to catch. Mine didn't catch there. As soon as I lifted this up, it popped right out. So definitely make sure those screws are catching both panels and not just the front panel. And you'll be able to tell because when you go to lift it up, it'll come apart if it's not connected. From the other side, we're going to do the same thing here up at the top with those little flippy flappies. Then for step 15, fold these 2 inner flaps down, flip it over, and pop the 4 rubberized feet into place. All have little Teenage Engineering logos on them. That way you know that they're the original feet. You get a lot of knockoff foot in this culture. The knockoff foot culture, I mean. Now I notice that there are other spots for these feet. So we're gonna probably get into that later. There are basically 2 ways to orient this build. And I think I am likely going to go for the upside down way. But in the meantime, here we are. The chassis is together. The screws aren't held together too tight. We'll tighten everything up later. But for now, look at that little beaut. It feels sturdy. because I know that I haven't tightened all the screws yet. I really like the way it's constructed. It's a very pretty color, and I like how teensy it is. And this is gonna be fun. All right, now to the frontisplate. Right there. The bulk. First thing we're going to do is flip both of these away from the control panel at a 90-degree angle. And these are stiffer than a lot of the other joints are going to bend, I think because it's the longest joint. Just be prepared. Remember, underbending is better than overbending. I learned that from Bender Rodriguez. First piece that we're adding into the assembly, the power distro. Another satisfying rip. Actually, that one wasn't very satisfying. Now, it's a shame this line didn't catch on more. It's odd with TE, because they seem to have two kinds of products, either ultra boutique high-end product like their microphones and the OP1 Field, or super entry-level stuff like the old pocket operators and something like this. All right, here are the screws that are said to come with this. Well, they're little standoffs as well. Let's take a closer look at these instructions. Screws go in from the front into the standoffs. Gotcha. And there's a little LED right there that lines up with that little spot on the package. All right, so power distro, let's go. These are using the same star key bit on one side, but you're going to need something to hold the nut still on the other side of that bolt. Luckily, I have something in that same kit. It's like one size up from that one. Maybe bigger than that one. All right, so you're going to want an M4 socket for that, if you choose to not just hold it with your fingers. These corner ones are going to be the toughest. You could do this with your finger or your thumb. It's not that tough. If you had like a pair of pliers or something, you could hold it with that as well. I'm going to start with the 4 corner pieces, starting with opposite corners, which is really the way you want to tighten bolts on anything, is the way you would tighten them on a drum, working from opposite corners and opposite sides to keep everything even. If you work around in a circle, things can end up getting kind of sloppy and tilted. And as fun as it is to get sloppy and tilted every once in a while, don't really think you want to do that here. All right, that interior one is definitely gonna do better if I use a socket to hold it. Oh yeah. As the French would say, c'est la vibe. The best way to tighten these up is to put the bolt through first, or put the bolt through first, then try to nut on the end of it. Definitely make sure you keep everything aligned, and if you have some sort of wrench or socket that you can use, do it and make your life easier. And generally, across the board, you're going to see messaging saying not to over-tighten. Also, don't under-tighten, but really what we're hoping for is that don't strip anything. All right, and that is the power distribution board installed. How about it? All right, so it's giving us basic module assembly. Telling you put the module on, you screw it into place, and then you add the knobs. As well as speaker assembly. And then the... All right, so they don't really give you a ton of specific instruction here, which is fine, because every step is going to pretty much be the same, with the exception of installing the speaker, I would think, and maybe the sequencer. So let's start with any of the other modules, and really looking at it in this way, let's just start from here and work our way down and around. So first up is the square oscillator, one of my personal favorite waveforms. I love a good square wave. Some could say I push the squares. And here you have it, a little square wave oscillator with a power cable. Flip it over, and remember, everything's moving when you flip it over. So the square that's on the left here is going to be on the right here. Everybody's saying, oh yeah, duh, come on, we've all been there. We've all done it to ourselves. Before you fit it though, and I missed this, that's my fault. You're working with the same sort of standoff situation again. So working from the back of the module, you'll put your first bolt through and then attach the standoff nut to the other side. And you're going to do that around all four corners. Which I assume will be the same for every module. A little something like this. Then you want to line it up. On this side, the jacks will line up with the holes, which is very convenient. And then add your four corner screws My suggestion is to get one corner in, just slightly, even just with your fingers. Kind of work your way around in a semicircle. Or in a semicircle? No, just diagonally across the sides. And then screw them in. I am actually going to add all of my fascia, all of my knobs at the end. All right, next up we have a saw oscillator. Sawtooth oscillator. Looks almost identical to the other one, but it says saw up there. That's how you can tell. This is so enjoyable for me on multiple levels. Number one, just the fact that I get to do it because of the support from my Patreon and my Kickstarter campaign. That's incredible. I also really just love to build a kit, whether it's DIY electronics, something like this, Lego, IKEA furniture. Like, I get a genuine sense of joy and accomplishment out of putting something together with my hands. And I always have, ever since I was a kid. I mean, my mom has wonderful blackmail photos of me putting together my little sister's Barbie house because, you know, I was a 12-year-old boy and did not want to be caught dead holding a Barbie, but somebody had to put that house together, and I wasn't going to let anybody else do it. All right, so we have the four corners in, and once again, we're just going to flip it over, lock it into place, and screw in the four front screws going from corner to corner. Next up, sine wave oscillator. Blood-ow. Something tells me this is going to look a lot like the sawtooth oscillator and the square wave oscillator. Oh, what do you know? It looks exactly like them, except it says sine on it. What are the chances? And again, we're just going to go screw from the back. I'm going to find as many ways to phrase that as possible. Stand off on the front. And I just screw this together by holding the screw with my finger on the back and then screwing the standoff on the other end with my hand. Unwrap that cable. And line it up. Flip it over and screw it in. Oh, that was close. I would hate to lose one of those. All right, mixer time. Random noise sequencer, mixer. Drop my screws. Now, if you're going to drop all the screws, the best time to drop all of the screws is when they're all in the bag. Put that back over. Mixer. Now, when I open my screws, I try to open them into the top of my screwdriver box. That way they are all contained. However, I've definitely flipped my screwdriver box before and sent every single screw flying. So, you know, still got to be careful. We're going to do this the same way. Screw from the back side, nut on the front side. Most of our tutorial videos won't be happening in this space. This is my kitchen, but it's the only table in my home that is big enough, at least in this season, when I'm not able to work outdoors, to put something like this together. But once we're actually working on sounds, we'll do that in a more comfy environment. Now, when you put this in, you want to make sure that the jacks are up top. Another good way to look at that is these 8 connectors at the top of each module. Those should be at the top. Flip it on its back, screw it from the front. Screw them in with the driver. And there's our top row. How about it? All right, next row. We're just going to lay them all out in order. So the last thing will be an envelope, then a VCA, another VCA, another envelope, a filter. First up is the LFO. The light, funky ones They like girls that wear Abercrombie and Fitch. Chinese food makes them sick. It's a current reference for the kiddies. Now, I know some of you, any of you, many of you are thinking, wow, that sure is wasteful to have all of those screws individually packaged with each little module, screw from the back, nut from the front, instead of just putting them all in one little plastic bag. And I agree, but there's some reasoning behind it. This is kind of just an abandoned line from Teenage Engineering, but there were briefly Eurorack modules, basically Eurorack conversions for these modules. So they were meant to be available as individual products and not just as part of this kit. All right, all four are in. Bumpus is on top. And there we are. And then working around, as is tradition. Flip it back over, and next up is the filter. Dumping the screws into my screwdriver box. And what are we going to do? We're going to flip it over. We are going to screw from the back, not from the front. Gorgeous. I'm about to go full Bob Ross here, but now don't worry if you're not moving as quickly as I am. Number one, you can always pause. Number two, I build a lot of things, so I'm just kind of fast sometimes. Nubbins at the top, flip it over, and screw it in from the front. 4. Oh, my dog is over there snoring. Probably won't get picked up on any of these multiple microphones, but just know she's having a good snooze on the couch over there. Next up is an envelope. What are we going to do? Say with me, everybody. Screw from the back, nut from the front. All right, and with all 4 corners in place, gold connectors up, lock it in, flip it over, and screw it in. And with this, I think we're about halfway through, at least technically speaking. I wonder how much of my refrigerator's ice machine you can hear right now. I like cold beverages. And get the 4 corners in. Ooh, keeps getting a little bit heavier. Every time you put another module in there, it gets just the tiniest bit heavier. Funny how that works. Next up, VCA. Are you having fun? I'm having fun. I hope you have some good music on. Let me know what you're listening to while you put this together in the comments. Oh wait, I'll probably put music in here. Maybe I won't. I don't know yet. We're gonna find out later. All right, and what are we gonna do? We're gonna screw from the back. We're gonna nut from the front. What we're going to do every time. All right, and let's screw it in from the front. Again, work around from opposite corners. All right, next module, VCA 2. Could never have enough VCAs. I'm really trying my hardest and doing an okay job so far to not really talk about the individual modules themselves, their use, what I'd like to use them for, what they're traditionally used for. Because we're going to save that for the later videos. Right now, we're just talking about construction. What are we going to do? Say it with me. Say it together now. Screw from the back. Not from the front. We're only going to be able to say that like 35 more times. But it's important to remember. You don't want to forget and end up putting everything in backwards and then you have to unscrew it and put... It's a waste of time. And you know what I say about time. It's the only thing you can't get more of. It's the only thing where you don't know how much you've got. It makes it incredibly valuable. So do it right the first time and take your time. And there we have 4 times, 4 corners, connectors at the top. Let's lock it in. All right, and 1 to go. That last envelope. I'm not going to say it this time. It's become crass. So I'm skipping this one. But you know what to do. Now, having your own driver and your own socket to hold the nuts really only seems to matter when you're assembling the chassis. The rest of this can easily be done with the included tools. There are all the proper clearances. You can get around everything. There's plenty of space. But for some of what you're doing with the chassis, it would really be helpful to have those other things around. All right, 4 corners complete. And it's time to connect. All right, and there we have the envelope. Sequencer is up next. This is one of the parts that I am personally most excited about, the fact that this has a step sequencer built into it. At the current price point, that's astounding. You often can't even touch a step sequencer for the total cost of this. But we'll have to see how everything performs. Add it to the trash pile. All right. You know which way the screws go, and you know which way to nut. And number 4. And then rock the 4 corners. You're going to notice when you bend this that you're going to lose some of the paint around the edges. And that's fine. That's how you make it your own. And screw in those 4 corners. Next up is noise. One of my personal favorites. Noise is fun for so many things, but I'm not going to talk about that right now. I'm going to save that for my video about the noise module. Standoffs. Screws. You know what to do. All right, all 4 standoffs are in place. Get that noise module in. Now, looking at all these modules, I really cannot believe how much is packed into this. Now the next module is the speaker. That requires a little bit more construction, it looks like, so I'm just going to skip that for a moment and go to the random. All right, and for the random module, we're gonna try something new. Let's do the screw from the back and the nut from the front. That's going to go over here on the far side next to the speaker. All right. I'm going to clean up this debris very quickly, and then we are going to move on with the speaker. All right, now onto the speaker. This one's in a slightly different box. The tear tab's on the top. We've got a couple of pieces here. Ooh, that feels nice. Oh, and that jingle means Penny would like to go outside, so I will be right back with you. And I'm back. This one looks a little bit different. Take this off. It says to recycle the square part. I wonder why that's included. I'll surely find a use for it. All right, so the first thing they want you to do is to connect the speaker there. All right, and there isn't really an instruction for that, but this is what we're going to do. I'm going to show you. Now let's open up those screws and get those standoffs out. First things first. This is the last time I'm going to say it. Screw from the back, nut from the front. Last one here. And then get that aligned with the front. Again, making sure that it is properly oriented. means that these two little cables there are going to come out through the top of the speaker module. All right, flip it back over. This speaker is pretty interesting. I really like the housing. So what you're going to want to do is make sure that speaker stays in its housing. And secure it by putting those little nubs through. Before you pull, you want to make sure all 4 nubs are showing. And then just pop it through. Lastly, you're going to need to attach all of these power connectors. They don't need to go in any specific order. However, I personally am running mine from left to right. All right, so there are going to be empty spots on this power distribution board. Do not fret, there are empty spots. Lastly, you're going to need the power box. And that robust power box comes with its own cable and connector that I'm just going to throw down at the very end to keep it separate from everything else. And that goes in there. And of course, you're going to want to put batteries in it. All right, clear some of this debris because we are at our last major step, our second to last actual step, really. And that is to attach this beast to the chassis. And there are a couple of different ways that you can do this. The traditional way is like this, so that everything sits upright like that. I'm going for the inverted method, where you do it like this, so that this lays more flat against the table. The first thing you're going to want to do, detach that battery box and just make sure you run that cable through that hole. Now, just another reminder, I'm treating this differently than the instructions tell you to. Gotta snap it in up top here. Let's get our first screw into place. You're going to want to work from the outside corners in. And the chassis goes outside. So you screw into the outer chassis and then into the base. And this might feel like a little bit of a squeeze because of all the power cables, but it's going to work itself out just fine. Make sure you're supporting the inner chassis from the back when screwing these in, because if you don't, it'll kind of just fall backwards and bend the wrong way. I'd say these little tabs here that you're screwing into may be the most fragile part of this whole construction process. Make sure all of your cables are on the inside. Now, if you run this upside down way, like I'm running it, your center two screws here aren't going to line up. And that's fine. It'll still hold together, and you'll have a couple of extra screws. I just can't do anything the factory way. I always have to have my own ideas and my own methods. And here I am using the included tool, which works wonderfully outside of those first couple of screws you gotta put in. Again, you really want to support the inner chassis while you get these lined up to make sure it doesn't just bend back. Right. Lastly, you want to get on the inside, connect that battery box. We get a little breakdown on how exactly to connect it. We don't, but it goes, you know, in here somewhere. You can kind of let it float around. You're going to need to pull it in and out. Looks like it probably goes right there. right, so one more step here. The very first screws that you put in, the ones that I said to keep a little bit loose, you can tighten those up now that everything's assembled. And there you have it, the POM400. Can't wait to start making noise with this thing. Let's do it. Here it is with the actual orientation as I would run it, just for the record. Here you have it, the POM400. I missed a step. I missed a crucial step. Adding the knobs. Oh, you gotta add the knobs. I'm gonna start here along the bottom. Looks like generally speaking, most modules get similar things. There are multiple types of little nodules here, though. So I'm just going to keep those separated by color. Is there a photo to refer to? Ah, yes, perfect. There is a photo right there that will show you what goes where. All of the yellow ones without a little leg go along the sequencer here at the bottom. And I'm just separating these out while I'm at it. This really makes me wish I had some old Technics lying around. All right. Also down here, the level knob gets one of those. The rate knob gets one of the regulars. This volume knob, this one gets one with an indicator. So you want to make sure when you're adding an indicator knob, that's the one with the little piece sticking out on it. You want to put it on loosely first. Make sure you have it either turned all the way up or all the way down. And then put it on with a little stick aligned where you would want it. All right, the envelope gets 4 grays. Both VCAs get a yellow without a nubbin and a yellow with a nubbin. Again, for anything that's an indicator knob, turn it all the way up or all the way down, and then place the indicator to fit. But just like that. All right, 4 more grays for the other envelope. All the rest of these are indicators on the filter. And I'm now actually noticing that the potentiometer underneath has a little groove in it showing you where everything should be lined up. All right, get that rate knob into place for that LFO. All right, going up to the mixer. Two, 3, 4. All 3 oscillators get the same setup. Tune knob is gray at the bottom. And then the other 2 level knobs get one with an indicator. Do I have an extra? Yeah, looks like I have 1 extra piece. Huzzah! And now, there we have a completed POM400. I would like to thank everyone who backed the Kickstarter.